Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Good afternoon. Am I audible to all? Okay. So very good afternoon to everyone and welcome to TOCOIndia TOCO, an online lecture series on tobacco control in India. My name is Sanchita Roy Pradhan. I, along with my colleague Dr. Vandana, will be your host for today's session. The topic of today's webinar is tobacco industry interference, past, present, and future. And it is my honor to introduce our speaker, Dr. Shivam Kapoor. And I think many of you may already be familiar with Dr. Kapoor's remarkable achievements and contribution in the field of tobacco control. Still, I'll do the honor to introduce him. Dr. Shivam Kapoor is currently working as a technical advisor, stock at the Tobacco Control Division Vital Strategies. Dr. Kapoor has been involved in monitoring the tobacco industry's behavior to influence and undermine public health policy and BD control in India. Dr. Shivam joined International Union Against Tuberculosis and Lung Disease, the Union, India in 2019 as a research coordinator and led two multicentric research projects in collaboration with Johns Hopkins University. He is trained as a public health dentist and has been involved in tobacco control for almost 10 years. He specializes in operational research and has a particular interest in studying the industry's harm reduction products, narratives, and cessation-related issues. Please join me in giving the warmest of welcome of our esteemed guest, Dr. Shivam Kapoor.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Sanchita, and a very good afternoon to one and all, and thank you for that warm introduction. Uh, if you may allow, should I proceed with my presentation?
Yes, you can.
Sure. Can you give me a heads up if it's visible? Sure. So, thank you for taking this opportune moment in this important series of webinars that WHO FCTC Knowledge Hub organizes. I think it's a very pertinent topic, and thank you for having me here. So I'll begin with my talk. So I've divided it in 5 segments, beginning with the introduction, the past, present, future, and the conclusion and recommendations. And I'd be happy to take any questions and discuss on this topic. I think beginning with the topic per se, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this term of tobacco industry and industry interference. So, taking you from there, I think the general understanding of when we use this term tobacco industry remains that it is that company where the products are manufactured. So, I think that's something where we want to broaden the understanding that industry is not just one unit. So in today's talk, I think that's where we want to focus upon and delve upon that industry is not just one site per se. So what is actually industry? Industry is any organization, any association, any person, any entity who is involved in this entire value chain business of tobacco products. So starting from the forming of the products that are used, which are the input, to the production, to the supply chain, finally the packaging, till the part it uses the end users. It reaches the end user. So all those are part of the industry. In that, there are many terms that are used frequently as who support industry. These are commonly called as industry allies. Okay. And again, there are theoretical concepts and classification. But for us, a very simple understanding, who are probably supporting industry, pro industry, in a way they are maybe financially backed by industry and they voice industry, they also become under this terminology, that is tobacco industry. So these could be industry allies or front groups, but again forming a very important and playing a very important role in industry interference. Now, coming on to industry interference, I think we must have this understanding that how it is different from tobacco advertisement, promotion, and sponsorship. So, industry interference, let's understand, is a tool used by a manipulative tool or tactic, which is used by industry, in which they try to dilute, derail the processes of tobacco control policy making by influencing the government. Okay, so that is the industry interference, and that's how we want to discuss in today's talk. So now having this understanding, it is very essential that we understand that we know that it is still identified as the single most obstacle to reduce tobacco use. I think in the previous seminars, we have discussed a lot on FCTC, so I won't go into detail, but we know that it is a global treaty and India is also party to it. And a lot of countries, more than 180 countries, have signed this treaty. Now, under that treaty, there are certain articles which countries have adopted and in some form and included in their legislations. So, to protect the parties or countries from industry interference, there's an article called Article 5.3. So there's an article number 5, and under that, point number 3 is there. That is like a protective instrument for any country to protect the government from the industry, so that there is no it acts like a shield in very simple terms. So that is the understanding. However, whenever there are these tobacco control debates, this article has remained at the margins. Okay, it is not formally operationalized whenever we talk about protecting the countries. Now, what we see globally is that this picture, when we form and when we see the global TII index, that is Tobacco Industry Interference Index, on that map, countries have adopted these policies in some form. Suppose the government of Netherlands now has a protocol for civil servants interacting with the industry. In Uganda and Botswana, these Article 5.3 guidelines are included in their national law. And in Brunei, Philippines, UK, they are implementing some sector-wide code of conduct, which varies when you dig deeper. Or there are some form of circular on Article 5.3 guidelines, but these are not comprehensive again. Now, coming to scenario in India, at national level, we have a code of conduct that is for public officials under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Whereas at our national level, we have a national legislation called COTPA. We don't have a direct provision of Article 5.3 under COTPA, sadly. Whereas India has made a state level progress, what we call as a bottom up progress, in which so far there are 22 Indian states that have adopted Article 5.3 in some form. Now, again, I have spoken a bit about Article 5.3. Let's understand that it is that tool that will protect, that will provide some policy guidelines for the country to protect its law from any kind of industry interference. Now, when we read more on interference, we have to understand the ways in which industry may act. So I've taken this from a ready reckoner called Crooked 9. You all can go back and read very common form how industry manipulates country or governments. suppose by building alliances, by using third parties, by spreading misinformation about health, by lobbying, and by even employing direct donation to the government or doing litigation. So these are various forms that we see industry manipulates. Whereas when we see the classification of interference, this I have again taken from the global TII index. This document is also available. There are various forms, and it doesn't stop here. There are variety of forms, such as the commonest one is using corporate social responsibility as a contribution that industry is making to the government and supporting, and thereby it influences the government in policy making. And there are other forms like transparency measures, unnecessary interaction with the government, level of industry participation, conflict of interest. Uh, I have also taken a very simple classification here. This is from a very recent 2023 article, freely available, in which it talks about what are the action-based strategies that industry may use, which we call as TII, industry interference. So six of them, which are in very simple language given here. Coalition management, that is, industry may build a lobby with some third parties and may advocate their arguments towards the country. Information management, or rather mismanagement, that they disseminate some kind of evidence which support their argument. I think a commonest example which some of us who are researchers and academicians among this session today, you must be reading conflicting articles on evidence on e-cigarettes and electronic cigarettes, which are at the end funded by industry. So this is information mismanagement. And I'll take example of India. Though we have an act against e-cigarette in India, still we have some conflicting news articles every day. We read that, and these are the misinformation that is spread by industry. Direct access and influence, again, by maintaining any kind of backdoor entry to the policymakers, industry will try to influence and try to dilute some policy by using legal tools, doing litigations, lawsuits. Illicit trade, again, this is a very gray area in which industry directly or indirectly engages and tries to show that we are not getting profits because there is too much of illicit marketing around, and they pose a very sorry figure towards the country that we are the ones who are having losses. And this is again a ploy by industry. And again, reputation management, by showing that we are pro health, we are pro people. So things like CSR, and nowadays a buzzword which has also come up as ESG. So they rank very high. These industries are big, and they show that they are doing so much for the government and stand by them. A clear-cut example is how CSR was the major tool during a pandemic, not just India, all over the world, in which industry did maximum contribution. Now, when so much has been said on TII, but is there any counter argument to it? So again, I've taken specifically this article, which I was talking before. So it's a systematic review, and broadly, there are 5 ways which have been categorized. But again, these strategies do not end here. So these strategies could be exposing industry conduct. Now, what I'm talking is how tobacco control advocates also counter this TII. So what has been found is globally, not just India, that tobacco control advocates may expose industry conduct and their false claims. These are done using op-eds, who that even expose the kind of misdirection industry is doing. These could be written by doctors, policymakers, or health officials, significant person who can convey this message, or even conducting media interviews, rallies. A commonest example, I think globally we want to give is in Uruguay. There were a lot of op-eds that were written for showing how PMI was intimidating government, and there are multiple such examples again. Next is accessing decision makers. This is a form in which the advocates may alert or inform or educate the government about certain aspects which industry might be manipulating. I think an example from Costa Rica, in which a lot of advocates lobbied to argue, that in their constitution, right to health should be given the prime importance and not to smoke. So that's where smoke-free laws, came into stronger implementation rather. And other examples, I won't go into much deeper, but like generating and using evidence against industry, filing a complaint, and mobilizing coalition and supporters who form that kind of argument to counteract the TII. Now, this is broadly TII. What is it, and how do we counter it? Now, I'll take examples of how TII has played a role in taking examples from our country, past, present, and future, which is more like a discussion. So, in the past, I've taken this example, which where we saw, a lot of strategies in the past that our country saw by industry. This is an example in 2014 when, our advocates were struggling, uh, 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 not struggling, where we were, where ministry finally proposed the pictorial health warning, both the sides, 85%, which thankfully we have got. But how we reached here is a classic example of how TII was coming into play, and there were not just one, multiple strategies used. So I've highlighted the ones like industry agents targeting the politicians who were probably who were mainly the ruling ones, and they in directly were having critical some parliamentary committee, and then meetings were organized. So these apart from this, there were some conflict of interest, because at that point of time we had 30% stake, the government had 30% stake in ITC, whereas the largest BD group in CJ was again owned by a heavy industry minister's family. Uh, Later on, there were a lot of written petitions also that were coming from these, coalition-based committee that were writing to ministry to suspend this pack warning that ministry had agreed. So there were a lot of to and fro meetings happening for this. And simultaneously, there was extensive network of front groups like AIBF, TII, Tobacco Institute of India, CII, ASSOCHAM, which played a crucial role to, have this policy back. So ultimately, they were not till this extent. It also led to a lot of litigations, which I think we can see in Karnataka High Court alone. It heard over 60 cases at that point of time. But ultimately, all said and done, this was counteracted, and there was full support to this policy. And finally, the ruling came in 2018 for having it as a 85% warning that we have. So I think that's where the past clearly showcases how industry does not want to stop. Looking at some current examples, and here I have divided it into industry-wise, like how smoking, how cigarette, BD, SLT, and e-cigarette are using some of the ways to interfere in our country. So, taking this example, we must also know that currently we also have this index in place, which has which has categorized interference into certain types, which I showed in the initial slides, and that acts kind of a tool to monitor where the country stands, and similarly, we can give some kind of scoring and then rank the countries. So, starting with the year 2019, there were 33 countries that were graded. The following year, it was 57 countries, and in 21, there were 80 countries that were, categorized and ranked. on the industry interference index. I am not going to explain in detail the index. It is available as a, again, ready available document. You can read that. But what I want to highlight the current scenario of India and the trend in interference that India has followed. Now, when we see in 2019 to 21, there had been a gradual decline of India's score. Again, when we have to understand the score, we should see it as the lesser the score, the better are we performing on interference index. So in the year 2021, our score had reached till 57. But what happened in the recent report that came in 2023, we when we see India's score, I've highlighted it here. We our score increased to 1 point. So from 57, we have reached 58. So I think that's where we are. And if we see this overall index, there were 90 countries this time that were graded. The lowest score went to a country, Brunei Darussalam, which had a scoring of 14, and highest is for Dominican Republic, which is around 100. Whereas India still stands somewhere in the middle. So I think that's where it is very important to understand monitoring playing a vital role in industry interference, and then leading to this kind of index grading. So when we see on the global picture, when we talk about the present scenario of interference, uh, 43 countries have deteriorated in their scores as compared to the 21 report, while 29 countries have shown some improvement according to this score. But overall, no country was spared. Each country that was graded, all those 90 countries, they have got some form of the industry interference. So I think, yeah. So coming on to Indian scenario, what is happening? I've taken few examples. Of course, it's not accommodating for me to go through all the examples which are there. But these scenarios, which I think all of you must have heard somewhere, cigarette industry primarily, we've seen that major kind of interference which is found is using CSR as a image making for the industry. And then there is a level of industry participation. So some of the examples, as you can see, mainly highlighting how ITC has played this kind of role. I think in the previous year, I'm giving these examples from like ITC joined hand with India Post and launched its own stamp. Then there were a lot of health initiatives in which ITC was donating directly, indirectly. There were national campaigns around nutritional health program, and we can see that in specific states in which ITC was, when I say directly or indirectly, indirectly is probably they have not the ITC logo directly, but they have something like ITC classmate, or they have something like ITC wow initiative. So, but ultimately, these also, when we dig deeper and at state level, when we go, these kind of contributions are even done through NGOs or civil societies. So that's where I think there's need to do more kind of monitoring of these kind of scenarios. When we see SLT or SLT industry in India, again, CSR funding remains a major kind of interference example. I've taken this picture from a hospital in Pune, Maharashtra, where RMD received CSR funds, and there was a huge picture of the chairman uh, in the campus. Then again, a lot of film festivals, which are not directly by the SLT, but by their surrogate products like Rajnigandha Pan Masala. And why it is interference and not taps? Because you can see government logo directly, in that as a co-sponsor. So that's where it provides a stage for the industry to be with the government, and that becomes like a partnering probably in some form with the government at some stage. When we see BD industry, the ways it has done is through funding or CSR. This I've given an example of Pataka, where you can see their website of CSR promotion through hospital. Coming on to e-cigarette industry, I think although we've got the act in place that prohibits e-cigarette in the year 2019, but last year the example which I would like to share is that the president of PMI, that is Philip Morris International, sharing the same stage on a sustainability summit, global business summit that happened in our capital, uh, and was found to share the same stage with our prime minister. And the thing about the summit is that it gives them a stage on to talk about sustainability and then promote their products as so-called sustainable, whereas what we understand is that it is more about industry transformation and putting them as friends of public health by providing newer alternatives. Again, this was a win-win story later on, although they did share a stage. But the winning story is that there's an advisory after a lot of attempts from the tobacco control advocates in India, that an advisory that came from MOIB, so that everyone should comply with the existing act. Uh, Presently, also on TII, there's a lot of progress that has happened, but again, it's not enough. I've mentioned about the policy development initially, that we have 22 states that are adopting the policy guidelines in some form, whereas the monitoring work has also taken some form. But and there are a lot of capacity building trainings that happen, which previously the union has done. University of Bard does. There's a course by WHO FCTC itself. Stop Tobacco Tactics in itself provide a repository which exists. There's a repository by again uh, that exists by SARC CCT, which is a regional observatory for South Asia. So, and I think a lot of attempts that have happened is that declaration of conflict of interest, that institution organizations do not participate directly, indirectly with industry. And this list is again beyond civil society. We have got a lot of AIMS institution, NICPR Noida also has this declaration. But the question is this present development enough? So I think that's where we want to discuss. Coming on to future, I'll start with the portrayal of industry firstly, how they are looking at the future. So I think we should not forget that every time industry comes with a plan, and it is at times we should say that ahead when this kind of business and marketing comes into play. So the kind of industry transformation that we are seeing now is that they no more want to portray themselves as the tobacco product maker, but they are transforming this narrative to something like safe alternative, harm reduction, or cessation sometimes. And that's where they want to barge into. Commonest example is the PMI CEO saying that cigarette belongs to museum, and that's how Philip Morris International is advocating its transformation for a smoke-free future. And that's where I think they have made progress in countries like Sweden, Japan, or UK, where a lot of smoke-free alternatives are being tried, and somewhere governments are also pro them. Thankfully, our country's position does not allow that. We have taken that stance that e-cigarette act also is a legendary example for it. But coming on to the bigger picture globally, and talking about India, there are things where where we need to know more. Probably we have not known the unknown. I think a lot of development has happened when we talk about greenwashing. That industry is going beyond health and showcasing itself as a major uh, health promoter towards not health promoters, major promoter towards environment, and towards this social governance as well. So those are the areas probably which we want to look next. Countries have made some progress. Talking about divestment also, there's an interesting concept called tobacco-free portfolios, where countries and organizations are taking parts, and basically they are not allowing any kind of investment from tobacco industry at at not all levels, at various levels, and every country's uh, putting it out there in varied form. Uh, Focusing on ESG, I did mention this in the beginning. That is the environment, social, and governance bit, in which industry is trying to achieve or showcase itself as a top ranker, and India is no less. Let me tell you, if you need when you see the newspapers, ITC is getting the highest rank when we see ESG grading. And largely, I think this tool, which we talked about initially, that is in our treaty, Article 5.3 policy guidelines, I think that's where we need to adopt and implement it. Uh, I think I'll just have this one slide on ESG, because again, it's a different area, because we are talking about future. So currently, SEBI does ask 1,000 listed country to do disclosures. All the businesses that exist in India, there are 1,000 companies, and out of those 1,000, there are three listed companies in India also that have been asked to do their ranking, and these are ITC, Godfrey Phillip, and VST. And if you log on to their page, they're already working towards it. So there are reports that they have already created, but when you dig deeper, these reports are again a ploy, because they are, outlandish claims of them doing CSR and not talking about the E or the G component. So I think I'll say 2 more minutes, and then I'll open it for the discussion. Probably the future strategies, and I'm talking for India here, because again, it's too much to discuss globally. Uh, for India, I think the kind of development progress with colleagues, whatever discussions we've had, we are seeing is that largely the monitoring is reactionary, and there's more need for preemptive efforts when it comes to TII monitoring. We talked about the ministry code of conduct to protect which exist in India, but its implementation is again something which we want to look at. Uh, Stronger adoption and implementation of 5.3 policy in India at all levels, beyond health, again, not just health departments adopting it, but other departments as well. And a kind of monitoring informant system to be developed, to be formalized, which is not just restricted to civil society or people working in silos, but also extending it to government at some level, and also a stronger political will uh, to support all this is needed. Uh, to conclude, the ask to monitor with a robust framework of wherein we can track the progress of Article 5.3 implementation at both national and subnational level. A whole of government approach, simultaneously having capacity building around TII, how to monitor it, and what is this policy. And I think since we gave and we discussed a lot of examples of CSR activities, there's still a conflict because there's a Companies Act, and then we have our indirect taps, where this argument comes into play. So that needs to be understood more, how we can tackle that kind of conflict whenever it exists. So I'll stop here, and I'll be happy to discuss more.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shivam Kapoor, for your wonderful presentation. And we are truly grateful for the invaluable knowledge and wisdom you have shared with us. Dear participants, now we have reached the question and answer section of today's webinar. I encourage you to submit your questions through the Q&A box, and we will do our best to address as many questions as possible within the time allotted. So Dr. Shivam, we have a question from Dr. Rakesh Gupta sir, that if tobacco industry interference contributed the most during the COVID pandemic, was it right for WHO and Government of India as signatories of FCTC accept this assistance?
So, thank you, Dr. Rakesh. I think that's where the morals and the debate of ethics and legislation also comes into play. So there's no I don't think I have a one word answer for this. Uh, but yes, I think how I would like to discuss it, and I think we've learned from you also, and many such colleagues. But I'll answer from that. Whatever debates have happened on that, I think to understand it, when we see it from the legal lenses, of course, it's not something being a party to FCTC that a country should accept. Yes, but again, when we talk about a time when the country is into so much hue and cry, that's a very sensitive and very vulnerable situation wherein if you try the legal angle, when something like some assistance has already been taken, because it's not asked from the people, and when these assistance have been taken, it's just it's taken, and then it's the debate that happens later on, was it right or not. So when these kind of vulnerable moments are, which industry keeps an eye, and it makes the case very strongly. So that's again something which is legally, of course, not right, and ethically, of course, because some or the other way they have been contributor to this pandemic. And there was research around uh, tobacco's association with COVID-19 and how it is the promoter, and if they really want to help, they should stop manufacturing these products. So yeah, in one word, these kind of assistance are not right, but to counteract it at such point of time is also, it becomes like a debate, and there's no one word no to that ex assistance.
Thank you so much for your answer. So amongst us, we have our respected Dr. Meera B. Aghi ma'am. So we would also like to listen from her. Can you please unmute?
I think that the the basic problem has been that we have not been able to compete with the tobacco industry as far as their lobbying with the people is concerned. They have the most intelligent people working for them, and they are always few steps ahead of us. And lately, what we have realized is, are you able to hear me?
Ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Lately, what we have realized is that no matter what we do, they take up the same topic as us and distort it and make it appear advantageous to the people in another form. So that has been a very, very big problem with us. Like the government of India helped us to ban the e-cigarettes. But then look at them. They come up with all the new products, and all the new products appear like they are salvation. They can help people in all directions, in all kinds of problems and all kinds of things. So this kind of thing has always been with the tobacco industry right from the beginning, and we have no means to really fight them on their ground. And this has been a very big problem with us, that we cannot compete them in terms of having resources, in terms of human resources. They have the most intelligent people work for them. They have lots and lots of money which they can spend. And I think that there has to be some means in which we can keep our strategies or our future strategies that we are thinking about, so much secretive that that they do not get disclosed to the tobacco industry. And I don't know how to do that. It's very, very difficult because there are people amongst us, who go ahead and do that in some form or the other, either unknowingly or knowingly for money, or unknowingly that they don't realize that they are going to be misused. I mean, there are people like Cyril, we have seen, who comes up with such strategies. And even Kerala has come up with strategies, and they have tried their best, but they all get defeated in one way or the other. And it is very, very difficult. And I think I would like Shivam to suggest some kind of strategy which can help us to have our own line of what we do with the tobacco industry, and which does not get disclosed at all, and we can continue, some way or the other taking care of them. Shivam?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for I think clearly suggesting and probably highlighting the issues that exist. Ma'am, very, very rightly, and I completely agree the point which you have made. Uh, Ma'am, I think again, coming from stalwarts like Cyril and other advocates, Dr. Upendra Bhojani, I think it's also, ma'am, very important to discuss in today's time that earlier we were even, as advocates, we were even daring to do litigations. But how this trend has, gradually slowed down. And why is it so? Probably those are the questions that we all need to discuss among ourselves, and then, build that kind of strategy. Are we getting intimidated by industry's ways over the years? Is it that dominating? I think it's not just one individual, and it's not just people in the government, it's not just the civil society, it's the kind of network, it's the kind of one leader from all the state which we want to bank upon, is gradually missing. So these are just pieces lying here and there. uh, but ma'am, like you said, that what next, what should we be doing again, ma'am, to the discussions with colleagues that we have is the tool that we should seriously adopt and then look upon implementing, because still India has got that code of conduct, but it doesn't exist on the website of Ministry of Health when we just make that Google search. So it's just clearly showcases that it's been so many years. It's been 3 to 4 years since 2020 it came, and this is the fourth year. But what is the development on code of conduct? I think Dr. Shalini ma'am also asked this question in the chat, that what kind of actions can be taken for people in the public services, and any case studies. So to my knowledge, I'm sorry, I do not have any case studies where the action have been taken. We are still struggling that these kind of reporting becomes strong, and this kind of acceptance come from ministry, not just health, and other ministries as well. Similarly, having a document or a piece of paper doesn't mean that governments, when I mean governments, are subnational governments, specifically the health department, they are reporting it strongly, and they are acting upon it, even though they have the policy. So we at our level, we are doing an exercise wherein we have interviewed governments and other cohorts, including civil societies, to understand what are the challenges and what is their understanding of implementing, even if they have this policy. So that's where we are still failing, because if the guidelines exist, but they do not know what to do with it, then how is it going to help? So, ma'am, I think so that's where India has taken that stance, that probably even in implementation of e-cigarette we were taking, that we were going state by state, and eventually we got a national law. But here we have seen that subnational policy getting adopted, but are we still there that we'll get a national policy adopted? We still don't know. So I think we all need to re-strategize this very important topic, and see the kind of victory that we had in e-cigarette. Is it what we are looking at 5.3 policy guidelines as well, or do we need to make any other strategy?
Yes, thank you, Shivam, for this beautiful collection of facts and figures that you showed in your presentation. And it really leaves us wondering as to how we should strategize to be able to reduce this industry interference in our it's in our day-to-day lives. Actually, if you see that we're not able to really reap the benefits of the law that we have made because of this interference of the tobacco industry, which is dragging us down. And there were a lot of misinformation, as you rightly said, but they managed this misinformation in a very strategic and in a very, I would say, organized manner, that it appears to the people that's as if it is actually the truth. And somehow your organization and other such organizations, they are looking at the tobacco industry interference index and all. But is the government organization also looking at it, or it's just the NGOs and those people who are actually tobacco industry, I would say at the helm of preventing tobacco industry from interference, only looking at these indices? So, because as you mentioned, that unless these guidelines or these policies, they are put into practice and there is monitoring, there's actually no way where we can understand from where we are and where we are going to. So, yes.
So, yes, ma'am, just to add, so there's no as such formal monitoring when we talk about our country that is taking place out and out for tobacco industry interference by the government. Uh, there's no specific measurement as such. When we talk about the legal frameworks, I can give example of even globally, there are civil societies or separate coalitions that are monitoring such instances and then making an effort to report to the government. Whereas some developments, when we talk about countries where they have implemented these guidelines, at least within their laws, like Uganda and Botswana are two countries where they have these 5.3 guidelines directly in their tobacco control law. Like for us, we have section 2 under COTPA, which gives an indirect picture, but there's no detail about adopting 5.3 guidelines. So, and there's nothing clearly, there's no example as such in which the government is monitoring. No, it's by civil society. Even the global TII report that comes, it is by civil society. It's not by any government.
Okay.
May I come in for a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure, ma'am.
Shivam, it just occurred to me that maybe what we need to do is not to concentrate on the industry, but to empower all our people with the utmost knowledge, motivation, and skill that we can impart to them and see what happens. Maybe the industry will be defeated by itself if our people are empowered, if they do not become any kind of, any kind of a point to them that they can overpower them. Then I think maybe we could consider, at least one group of us could consider this, to just concentrate on our people, the young people, the older people, women, men, so that we give them so much knowledge, we give them so much ability in terms of in terms of skills, and we motivate them so much that the industry gets defeated by itself. I'm just wondering, it just occurred to me that sometimes these strategies which are more like common people strategy, maybe they can work, maybe they can produce some kind of results. I just feel, I think that it would be a kind of a behavioral approach to the people, how to strengthen them with all the knowledge, with all the abilities to perform better, not in terms of fighting with the industry, but on themselves, giving up, making their cities tobacco free, making them, passive smoking free, making them all kinds of ability, giving all kinds of abilities to the people, and then seeing what happens. What is tobacco industry able to do at that point? Maybe we need not pay attention to them. I don't know
Thank
if I
you.
not.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. And I think I have one point to add here. Very rightly, as you said, that knowledge. I think this is one discussion which we had with Dr. Upain and Dr. Rana as well. Beyond health, like for example, in India, we have a Department of Personnel and Training, where we have the IAS officials, which are nurtured and groomed. I think it's that ministry, that MOPP, where we could probably also invest some resources to build their capacity, and having this kind of understanding of code that should also go beyond Ministry of Health. So I think it's there where the training begins, and it will become easier for the to make these as tobacco control champions or advocates, rather than when they actually come into position and join certain ministry wherever they get posted later on. But if it's imbibed in them in their development years, I think that's one discussion that probably we have not taken, and we should.
I just feel that we might be able to make a headway, but who knows?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, this is again, an important department, one department at least, where we should, I believe, target our resources.
Yeah.
Uh, I would also take one question, Sanchita. Mr. Prabhat has written that these mechanisms have effectively failed on the ground. What are the innovative ways, if you can suggest a few? I wouldn't suggest, I wouldn't agree completely that we are failing every time. Because I would say, I would agree that yes, industry wins and makes it marks on and off. But I think there are multiple best practices, and the first case of 85% pictorial warning is a clear case where we have succeeded having an act, compared to many countries where e-cigarette is still a legal product. We are still at the forefront. We've got film rules extending to OTT, and no country has done that. So I wouldn't say we are failing when it comes at all places. But Yes, I think we all need to build those champions and find those champions. When you talk about what are the innovative ways, I think among as if we are implementing it state by state, we need to build that kind of network that has to reach at the center. It cannot be just one state or two state giving their examples. So that's where we are, yes, failing and lacking that strategy to reach the center. But yeah, efforts are still going on. But of course, we need to take this case of TII monitoring to the central level. Probably it could be part of NTCP, where it is highlighted as a thrust area, and it's still not. So yeah, even in our MIS system. Also, I think I would also urge, like NICPR has put up that conflict of interest, and on their smokeless hub, there is that code of conduct that exists. But people who have joined from other research, in academia and other government private institutions, it is an urge to all of you that your websites could adopt that code of conduct, at least on, and discuss with your organizational head how best you can implement, and specifically for organization and people who are working directly under Ministry of Health, Family Welfare. So, yeah.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
and
much.
Shivam, we also initially when this code of conduct had come in, so we did webinars and we included a lot of ICMR institutes to join the webinar, and we give this introduce them to these guidelines and the code of conduct. So I think something like this we can again do as a routine or a regular activity and involve more and more not only health institutions but other institutions as well. Educational institutions are also very important in this. So
Also, thank you, ma'am. Yes,
yeah.
very rightly said. And, a lot of initiatives like you, even PGI Chandigarh and AIMS, like institutions have done that. But again, there's probably a unity which needs to come in, like from our end, from my department, and, with other colleagues who are specifically monitoring this. We monitor and we discuss among each other, and it is reported to ministry at times, but it is not a concrete effort at times, or it is not a joint effort which can voice out such things. So that platform, even if with the knowledge hub we could establish that kind of formalization equation, where this voice can go every time we monitor some instance, it reaches out to ministry. So that could be a headway for us, after
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that. And I think Sanchita will take it forward from there and discuss with you how to shape this up. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So with this, we have come to an end of our question and answer session. We greatly appreciate Dr. Shivam Kapoor's time and expertise in addressing the question of our participants. Now, I would like to request our respected director, ma'am, to give her closing remarks. Ma'am.
So thank you, Sanchita and Vandana, for conducting this session, and of course inviting Dr. Shivam Kapoor for this webinar. And he's given us a broad idea to all the listeners as to what is this tobacco industry and how you can differentiate tobacco industry from its allies. And it's not just one entity, it's a whole gamut of people and individuals and organizations who are collectively doing this great disservice to the health and mankind, I would say. And he clearly explained what are the differences between tobacco industry and how quietly they enter into the lives of people without their knowledge. And but it is so that we think that it is a part of our day-to-day activities, because all the things that they are promoting is actually something which we need all the time, and how they take liberties, especially during calamities and crisis situation. So we have to sort of, those who have this knowledge should spread it out to others, and I would say join hands with the civil society to reduce this kind of tobacco industry interference, at least in our own lives and in the lives of our near and dear ones. But if you can work on a larger platform, it'll be very nice. So thank you, Shivam, for this very engaging talk. And over to Sanchita.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you found the webinar informative and helpful. So once again, I'd like to thank all and have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.